Hey, this is Richard Miller again. Haven't been on for a while. For Facts for Working People. I just wanted to get some stuff off my chest. I was just watching the Jeopardy. I love the Jeopardy, and the ads come on, and the first two ads. I always say on these things about how my wife gets mad at me because I get angry at the television. And you've been here 44 years. You should be used to it by now. But the thing is that, so I see these two ads. The first one is two little kids, 10 years old, I don't know, 11 at the very, very most. One girl, one boy. Can I say that? I don't want to prejudge. But a girl and a boy. And they're selling cars. And the girl's at the front, the boy comes on, he's at the back, he's got they act very adult, and he's got the tie and everything. The next one is a very hip young girl, very tech savvy, with a remote in her hand, and she's flipping TVs over her shoulders, changing channels, and she's selling, I think it was internet services. And I thought to myself, this is disgusting. Imagine what type of people they're going to grow up like those. But I just thought, how disgusting is that? And it's the thing about this country. I've been away from Europe for a long time, been away from England for a long time. And if you go back to England, I was there last year. I mean, an American buddy, born in America buddy. And I know the savaging the working class there. We know all the problems that are happening globally, including in Europe. But they have had political parties that are their own, and it's different there. And it's like, for example, you can't advertise prescription drugs on TV in England. I've never seen them. I mean, and here it's constant. They got the audience. If it's an older show like Frasier, or even worse, if it's like Mayberry, it's all the drugs for old people. And everything from walk-in baths. Well, that's not a drug, but you don't see that over there. And here you got the leg syndrome, the excessive shyness, baldness syndrome, God knows how many different syndromes. I have a friend who's a pediatrician. She's a retired pediatrician, and she told me that a woman came for a disease, complaining about a disease. She never heard of it. She'd heard it on TV. And what they do is they say to you, oh yeah, you've got this. Well, you got this, and there's a lot of acronyms, ADPD, DDP, all sorts of acronyms. And they say, well, ask your doctor if, let's see, what's the drug that we see for depression? Fuck it all. Yeah, there's that big drug that goes around, fuck it all. Maybe you may be suffering from capitalism, and they have this drug for it. It's a joke on the internet. And so they call up the doctor. Anyway, it just gets us all worried. They want to sell their drugs, the pharmaceutical companies. But when I watched these kids, I thought to myself, how disgusting is this? That these kids are selling cars at 10 years old, selling stuff on TV. And the other aspect I thought to myself, we've got a piece put on the blog today, we've got a couple of them, but one today about what they're doing to the children at the borders. I mean, it's putting numbers on them. I mean, it's so reminiscent of the Nazis, And I thought to myself, how sickening is this? That they're doing this, and it made me think of the children down at the border and everything else. And here they are, they got these other kids selling stuff on TV. And the thing is, it's so pervasive here. And it made me think about this question of the immigration. Is that and we mentioned this in this piece that one of the authors put up today, is that they never discuss in society. If you talk about science, you watch a nature show about Newton, about Einstein, about science, they're compelled to go back into history and show the development on science, in science, all the way back to the great discoveries in Arabia and India, because they have to show that it's a sequence. But they don't do that with social science. That's what they don't point to us. Why? The question we have to ask ourselves is, why are these people coming up here? Why are they risking hell and high water to come up here? You see people saying, well, they shouldn't bring their kids. It's their fault. Well, why do they come here? People don't leave their homes because they don't like them. They don't leave the comfort of their own culture because they don't like it. And of course, the reason is they're not come from Canada. Why would they come here from Canada? And so unless it's a personal choice, but not out of the necessity, because it's a first world country up there and they have much better benefits and other things. But the people from the colonial South, from south of that border down to throughout South America, this was US imperialism's backyard. US imperialism has plundered, robbed, raped, assassinated, overthrew governments. That's what the US imperialism has done in this southern part, the southern hemisphere here. It was very much like Britain. And what was I doing in Nigeria? I was born in Burma. My father was he was in the army. He was a grunt. He wasn't an officer, member of that class. He ran away from home when his mother died, joined the military to be with horses, ended up in a prison camp in Japan throughout the war. It was just like the people that we sent to Vietnam or anything else. There's a difference between the working class people that they use in the military and they con in the military as if it's fighting for freedom and to defend us and all that, when it's actually the opposite, than those people that send them. The people that send them, they don't fight, they don't send their own kids. But so the thing is that was very similar with Africa. That it was the European colonialisms and Britain's colonialism backyard. I never knew when I was young and younger, I'm talking about a young man, and I went all through Iraq in 1971. I didn't know about the Sykes-Picot Agreement. I didn't know Britain and France had created these countries and carved them up after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and prior to that, as the colonialism went into this part of the world. They didn't do it because they had darker skin. They did it because the search for markets, the struggle for markets, and these other issues play into it. If you want to divide people, you've got to demonize them. If you want to send your own working class to kill them, you've got to demonize them, and so forth. But I never understood that. And then as I began to understand that, I look at the countries in Northern Africa. They're all very rectangular. They're very angular countries, because these countries, and most of the countries in Africa, they were drawn up by imperialists. Pakistan, India, the British split that up. They left out Kashmir. Some lawyer drew those boundaries, but they drew it in the interests of British imperialism, not in the interests of the British working class, although they benefited from it to a degree, but in the interests of British colonialism, British imperialism. So they don't explain these things. They don't explain history in this way. So when we look at these immigrants, well, it's not their fault they're coming up here. It's a horrific journey, especially for women, massive amounts of rape and robbery and murder and all sorts of things. But you can find this stuff and we have to look for it. But of course, NAFTA drove millions of Mexican farmers off the land. In the 1912 revolution in Mexico, they were guaranteed a little plot of land, subsistence farming, they could feed themselves. NAFTA wiped that out. How can a little Mexican subsistence farmer compete with ConAgra? You know what I mean? And with American agribusiness, even American farmers can't compete with them. And so the people are forced up through, because of imperialist policies in the South, are forced to fight. You won't stop people trying to feed their kids. That's the problem here. And for Labour, for us, for working class people, it behooves us to unite with those people, not to treat them as illegals and all of this sort of stuff. Because even if they don't come here, capital will go there. We know that. That's what happens. Capital will go there and will exploit them. So it behooves us to join with them, help them raise their standard of living, and not attack them in competition. The same with Europe, with somebody telling a Syrian immigrant to go home. What home are they going to go to? What home? It's blown to bits. The US invaded Iraq, has destroyed that country. The Africans, particularly the sub-Saharan Africans that are coming up and into the Mediterranean, I was reading, I think 2,000 have drowned in the last few months or 6 months or what have you. They are victims of imperialist and colonial oppression. And everything the mass media does. Look at the Democrats in this instance. What are they talking about? I wouldn't hold up a sign at a protest that said, "Don't separate families." It's not the issue of separating families. So it's okay to put a whole bunch of them in, the whole family in camps, the whole family, put numbers on them, like they did with the Jews and the gays and the communists and the socialists and mentally sick in the Nazis did. No, we don't want any of that. We have a program of our own, unity with these people, the struggle against capitalism, and what have you. But the question is for us to recognise. I remember when I was taught about the English Revolution. I was taught, well, it's the Roundheads and the Cavaliers, and King this was married this one, and then the Queen was done this one. There was a battle, and then this one wrote. The forces at play were not explained to me. And when I became political, I found out for myself. The Treaty of Nanking in 1842, I think, I remember reading about that and being taught about it. Well, the Treaty of Nanking, the British were allowed certain rights to trade. And, well, after they'd bombed the city, this is the case. You know, they bombed the city and then they made the deal. So history is taught. I think they call it in a very formalistic, logical way, the way the victor writes history. The history of America is a violent, brutal history of slaughter and robbery and theft. The people that were overrun when they came here, the blacks that came here as slaves, the Europeans that came here as poverty-stricken indentured servants, some as slaves themselves, even in the Caribbean and what have you. It's a violent history, but it's so important in this thing. Sean put in the article he wrote, and I'll try and put a link to it. I got a new updated iPhoto, and I don't know if I can work it yet. About, you know, he was flipping through the channels and yesterday all the preachers were up there in these mega churches, and he's talking about some guy said to Jesus, some uncle, or said to his buddy about something Jesus. There's nothing proven about any of these. He's reading it as if it was on tape, and the tape had been found or something. You can believe in that stuff. That's up to you. But there's absolutely nothing that can verify any of this stuff. And meanwhile, outside, they're dragging children away from their parents and locking them up in cages. This is the insane situation we're in here, and the world is in, actually. And I believe this. I don't believe. I know what a lot of people think abroad. It is a craziness that's going on here, but there will be an explosion at some point. American working class history is very rich, violent history, not by our choice. We didn't get where we are today because of lawyers, and it wasn't the mafia that built the unions, ordinary working folk. There's going to be an explosion in this country at some point in time. And we're not as conservative as we imagine. 80 million didn't vote. It wasn't because they don't care and they're all right-wing pieces of crap. It's the biggest problem in this country. The Labour leaders say nothing. Where are they? To my American friends and co-workers and the American population, where the hell are the leaders of this 14 million member trade union movement in this country? They say nothing. Nothing at all. They're a disgrace. They're criminally negligent. The teachers' struggles offer us some hope, and they've changed the seascape, the landscape here in this country. So these were just a few things I wanted to say. I'm going to see if I can get them up, and I will put a link to the piece that was put up today because it's important. It talks about history, why we're here today, and that's me, Richard Miller, Facts for Working People. And if you want to join our phone conferences, drop us an email. It's on the blog, and we'll talk about it. All right? Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.